Hello. Hi. Smile big. Smile. So this time we have another topic, and I'm going to try the best I can to share this. There's so many inner working pieces to it, but I do the best I can. My understanding of distractions from getting a person to know their inner mind versus outer mind, which we look at that as physical or spiritual or mental or conscious, right? So, what we're dealing with is a dilemma. We live in a time where we have everything at our fingertips, anything that we want, whether it's dating, food, friends, music, cultural events, so on and so forth. We have it, just like how you can find me now. We can find the latest fashions, designs for technology and crazes and fads. And these things are awesome. At the same time, we always couple with a phrase that we utter that we don't have time to think about things when we fill our time thinking about fads. Okay? This is called, to me, while the person hasn't asked themselves what the meaning of their purpose is, or the weight of the substance of the thoughts that they may interact with or protrude or take in our life experience. If these things haven't been met, they don't know the answer to these things, then by all means, the most important questions have yet to been answered, right? So I call this a distraction. Huge distraction. A person has 1,000,001 thoughts running through their mind, and not one of them about the state of their being, the state of the reality that they're in, that they call a reality, the system that's formed with it, and how it reflects upon them, their attitude, and others. If this hasn't been met, then ultimately we wouldn't have to call this a way of life, but a distraction. And you'll start to notice this almost as an epidemic as it spreads. People don't know what's most important to them in consciousness, what their value of a good life is, but they know what good shoes are. This, you're living in the outer mind. Physical, material possession. And you can only live in that world but for so long until you realize that something seems to be terribly wrong, and that all the wealth, all the possessions and materials that you could amass doesn't fulfill a certain need or desire inside. There's still a hunger, a hole, and that hole is left there as a result of not paying attention to the contents of your inner mind or your consciousness. Your consciousness or inner mind is always on a path to constantly move forward and elevate. It's made to do work, to tip things in a natural balance of order, as we call positive energy, balance of yin and yang, light and dark, positive and negative. Everything has its place. So where you nurture the physical mind or the outer mind, so must the inner mind or consciousness or spirit be nurtured. All these other things hold you back from getting to know yourself. Think about that. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to interact. And when we do interact, what do we notice? We notice that everyone's finger is raised up on pause, on poise, ready to point at the next direction to blame. One of my neighbors just went by. To blame. Okay, we're always looking for something to blame. If it was something that we don't have and the other person has it, we ultimately make up a reason to devalue that person's worth. Perhaps this person has made many positive contributions and conscious efforts to help others with whatever that became plentiful in their path. And so, in all truth, maybe they truly actually deserve it. And maybe that what they did in their deeds came back to them in the right energy, in the right light. What we do, what humans tend to do, is completely wrong. There is no way for you to cast that type of image upon another without learning, absorbing the content presented beforehand. And this comes from a created lust or hunger of the material condition. Since you are motivated or encouraged to strive for these things that are made up in arranged pictures that are perfectly set, it's called setting the stage, or a script that was read for a person to say perfectly by a team of writers, that makes it look easy. But not knowing that there is a staff of hardworking individuals who have doctrines and PhDs in psychology, so on and so forth, to the matter at hand, which is suitable for the task, to communicate that to the public. That's an illusion, and definitely only there to feed the outer mind or outer consciousness, which is physical, and not the inner mind. And what we find when we feed into that materialism is that another voice starts to speak up. Says, hey, you should have that. Why do they have that? And all sorts of whirlwinds and spirals in a downward direction, pulling you forever lower. Until now, you seem to paint the world with a brush in that lower light, and now, just like the others that you hear, with swayed opinions, with a lack of information, you are now painting on the same canvas with the same brush and same color. To avoid this, you need to stay in studies. To avoid this, you have to understand science, universal law. Understand the engineering concept of constructing for whatever that you're trying to achieve. There may be a million ways to do it wrong, and only really one way to do it right, or in some cases, only a few. Someone who is doing things wrong and appears to be coming out right will eventually see the error in their folly, for it won't last, because a circle doesn't fit in a square, and a square doesn't fit in a star. See, so there's only one way, and those ways are by universal law. And by neglecting your inner mind, your inner spirit, you fall deeper into lack of consciousness and a disconnect from who you really are and using your full potential. Painting the brush with one color is not the way to go. By following universal law, one obtains the balance that they sought out to achieve by realizing that there's cause and effect for every action and reaction. And with this, doesn't go against the grain of the universal law. And when a universal law speaks, that this person is ready to listen, for if not in doubt now of everything they thought would go right because of all the misery and suffering, either in mental or health, that this has caused. The person who moves with the flow of the universal law, forever growing In fact, bringing their theory together of who they are and their natural place in the universe for their purpose driven, mountains will move. For the one who ignores this will always be met with a disarray of confused actions and sometimes negative actions, depleting their health, energy, and consciousness, and painting their surroundings with the lowest of vibrations they could ever see or ever put out. There's more room for distractions in your life, and that's wrong. For when you go outside, you'll hear people with opinions based on a he say, she say, without any basis for the facts. And when you put them to the test and you say, hey, where'd you find that? How did you learn about this? The best they could tell you is their neighbor down the street. But have they themselves taken the time to study the information from the Zoroastrians, from the yogis, from all of the esoteric religions and sciences, from the Cometics, the alchemists, from the physicists, the astronomers, from the doctors, biophysicists, from the architect, the engineer, so on, so forth, the artist, the entertainer, the communicator, the psychologist, etc., etc., in the fashion, etc. Always nourish the inner mind by knowing about the counterpoints and balance of positive and negative. And the golden rule, as I said before, as it is expressed in many studies, and one to always remember, that you shall do unto others as you wish done unto you. Feed a world full of lies and opinions swayed by emotion, and you live in a material world of irrationality and unrealistic expectations. Short-term efforts, quick to give up, ill temperament, and thin skin. Hey y'all, I'm back. My phone ran out of space, so I'm back on the tablet, and figured I'd say this while the edit's gonna look funny. But I'll try to pick up where I left off and see if bear with me, okay? This does take time. So I think I left off on the result of becoming more thin-skinned. Okay, so at thin-skinned, you become temperamental. At that point, you are distracted. And the more distracted the individual becomes, forever falling into a void, not ever fulfilling their true nature or ability, and never fulfilling any of the visions or expectations in the fashion they thought it would be in. In materialism, they will sway. They will fall into a depths of despair that cause them to see what they do not have versus what they already have. And by doing that, creates a sort of jealousy and an unrest, and will eventually do nasty things to get what they think they need. And more of what they need is more of a want and a desire for the image that has been painted to work against their own psyche, to distract them so much that they never do reach their full potential or realize the value that they hold. With this, health falters. You may have the house, but you're sick. You hear people breaking up in relationships because this person, the man or woman, the man doesn't have the same amount of earning ability as this other guy does in the suit, but they are unaware of the rest of the information that there lies in the background. What problems do they have? They never ask that question. Or on the other side, the man looks at a woman as not having the right social appearance for the status that they wish to have upon their arm in public. Or maybe it's sexual nature, physical, sensual things that are not feeling like it's being fulfilled, but never noticing once at what they do have already, a wonderful partner, a friend in the journey of such a confusing place that most likely isn't even real for most parts. The only thing we have is information, and richness in knowledge, experience to find out how this place works. For the one that works with the universal law makes change, makes things happen, and they're long lasting, not short lived. With that, I hope that people want to get into more research about how to build their inner self and their inner mind versus the outer mind, the I versus the me, so on and so forth. And that this helps you build that consciousness it takes to have a pleasant and worthwhile attitude. You'll notice that the more that a person obtains that has this materialistic attitude, or outlook, I should say, also is very opinionated and usually negative. And while they have materials, they push others away. No one wants to be around someone who is arrogant or condescending or insulting or belittling or emasculating in any form. It is not attractive. By being positive, you start to use an ability that all of us have that flow from our emotions. And these are the good energy ray vibrations that we could use to elevate all and energize the air and breathe that in and feel revitalized with good health to enjoy all of the hard work that we've done. To be able to receive the message of consciousness, to follow the ray of light and ride the wave. Into this, like they said, seems like mountains are moved. Things just seem to work out. And maybe it's because of all the time that this person's put into being a little more selfless, a little more thoughtful, and a little more giving. To spread happiness and smiles and encouragement to empower instead of the other. There's so much information that runs through my head to try to get this all out, and it's really, really tough. It's chapters upon chapters. What else could I add to this? I remember now what I wanted to talk about. So after all hearing about this negativity of the material thinking, state of thinking alone, and outward mental, the outer mental versus the inner mental, we start noticing the difference. We say, well, I don't want a life where I'm the man who has everything. I'm the person who has everything and nothing. You want the enrichment of your life to be as a whole. So you're there for the things you care about most, your friends, family, so on and so forth. And the way we even begin to realize how to unlock this full potential is, like I said before, constant studies and reaffirmation of the studies that you take in. And you will need to weed out those who do not wish to learn and come up on that plane with you. And they will pretty much do that by themselves. The worst thing for anyone who doesn't want to try to ascend to any other level than what they see before them, because they're comfortable with that low bar that the materialism makes them have, is work. They will not want to put in the work. They are convinced that all the things come easily and quickly as striking the lotto, which also is a long shot. One in whatever fraction to the parts per million of the dollar value. So you will express that you want to do this work and that you're into this work, and don't talk about it, just start doing it. Once you start doing it, you enter a focus, a zone, like we said before. the universe attracting you, you attracting into it, setting your gaze, creating your own gravitational hold on what's most important. What a better way to do it. And what a better way for all those who aren't serious about getting to know themselves, let them fall off to the side. But as they see you striving more carefree with a good attitude and things going your way, and you happen to be on time or things happen on time there when you need it, they will start to wonder, maybe there's a bit more to this, and maybe there's some stuff I need to learn. And hopefully they will. Some go their whole life path and never realize that there's so much more to gain. And what better things to gain than the full potential of you? What better things to nurture than a love of life, spirit, good health in you, and able to help others do the same? Always feed and nurture the inner mind to find the stillness and the peace. Methods of meditation can be applied. I suggest studying them, looking into them. Rigorous activities of fitness and sports help. Nevertheless, channel the body, channel the mind towards an ascending point. Elevate consciousness, promote that consciousness, and let everybody else bask in the rays of its warmth. Thank you for your time.